Good evening, everybody. My name is Councillor Debbie Arnott and I'm the Mayor at Warrnambool City Council, and I will be chairing tonight's council meeting. I would like to formally welcome everyone watching this council meeting. This council meeting will be live streamed to allow for public viewing and transparency, and if any technical problems interrupt the live stream during this meeting, the meeting will be adjourned until the issues are rectified. This scheduled council meeting will be conducted in accordance with council's governance rules, and any interruptions to the meetings or actions not in line with behaviour expectations will be dealt with in accordance with these rules. I'll ask the councillors to stand now for the opening prayer and acknowledgement of traditional owners. We will now proceed to the items of the agenda, commencing with the opening prayer and acknowledgement of the traditional owners. Almighty God, grant to this council wisdom, understanding and sincerity of purpose for the good governance of this city. Amen. I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we stand and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Are there any apologies for the meeting? Councillor Blaine?
Councillor Jelly.
Thank you. Do I have a mover that council accept the apology from Councillor Jelly? Councillor Taylor, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Councillors, at item 3 on the agenda, we have a recommendation before us to confirm the minutes of the scheduled meeting of council held on February 6, 2023. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Do I have a mover? Councillor Taylor, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 4, conflicts of interest. If a councillor has a conflict of interest, they must declare it now and do so again just prior to the item being discussed. A councillor who has declared a conflict of interest must leave the meeting and remain outside the room while the matter is being considered or any vote is taken. Once the matter is resolved, the councillor will return to the meeting. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? No, thank you. I'll now move on to the mayoral presentation. The Big Ride for a Big Life was held at the end of February with 82 bike riders and their support teams riding from Melbourne to Warrnambool to raise funds in response to mental health issues presenting amongst school students. Those that took part rode in 38-degree heat, with the youngest rider being 15 years old and the eldest being 73. And in that soaring heat, they raised $136,000. This program is now present at 8 schools, and it's a wonderful initiative to help our community youth. It's a demonstration of community spirit, and a huge congratulations to all those involved. And one of our iconic businesses in Warrnambool, Pontings Mitre 10, celebrated 100 years in business, and such a wonderful achievement and inspiration. And for any business to survive and flourish over such a long time is remarkable, so congratulations to them. On the weekend, the official opening of the Jetty Flat Pavilion was held, and this is another amazing addition to the sporting offering in Warrnambool. The pavilion is now home to Russells Creek Cricket Club and the Warrnambool BMX Club. It's also a gender-friendly building, and it's another step forward to being more inclusive in sport. And I hope it contributes to greater female participation. And we have also welcomed our new CEO, Andrew Mason, and it's truly wonderful to have you here at Warrnambool City Council, and we are looking forward to a progressive future with you at the helm. We will now move to public question time. CEO, are there any public questions tonight?
Through you, Mayor, we have one public question from tonight, and it's from Miss Carol Altman, who's not able to attend the meeting, so I'll read the question out and provide an answer. So the question relates to an area of the Hopkins River foreshore in front of the Warrnambool Ski Club off Simpson Street. Ms Altman has pointed out the area has suffered from out-of-date methods of erosion control, which include installation of old car tyres, carpet and the like. And she's raised the concern that the material is now rotting and potentially releasing pollutants into the river and is an eyesore. And she asks, does the council have a plan to remove these items and rehabilitate the area? So I'm reliably informed that the area in question adjacent to the ski club is not a council asset or not recognised as a council asset. So that being said, what we will do as a council is work with the ski club and the Glenelg Hopkins Catchment Management Authority to address this issue, and I'll certainly be raising this with the CEO at the Catchment Management Authority as a priority.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. Councillors, we are now moving to the officers' reports section of the agenda, and I would like to remind you of the speaking times allocated for each item during the meeting as outlined in our governance rules. The mover of a motion may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes to open the debate, and then a further 2 minutes later on to exercise their right of reply and to close the debate. Any other councillor, including the seconder, may speak for or against a motion for no more than 3 minutes. To assist councillors with time limits, you will hear a signal when you have reached the maximum time allowed. I would ask you to respect the time limits, please. Item 7, the reports. 7.1 S5, Instrument of Delegation, Council to CEO. Agenda page number 6, Directorate Executive Strategies. The purpose of this report is to seek Council's consideration of the S5 Instrument of Delegation from Council to the Chief Executive Officer. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Taylor, what is your motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I'd like to move that the motion that Council, in the exercise of the power conferred by Section 11-1-B of the Local Government Act 2020 is as per officers' recommendation be accepted. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, thank you. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. The instrument of delegation needs to be reviewed and updated accordingly following Council's recent decision to appoint a new Chief Executive Officer, which empowers the new CEO to subdelegate functions, duties and powers, ensuring that the day-to-day operations continued unhindered in a timely and efficient manner. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just add that a vote is required to confirm this set of conditions and limitations for the CEO to operate under. And I think in the attached paper, the list of conditions and limitations remains largely unchanged. And within it, the CEO is unable to enter into contracts or approve expenditure of more than $400,000.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Is there any further councillors who wish to speak to the motion? No, thank you. There being no further speakers, Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor Arnott.
I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item 7.2, S6, Instrument of Delegation, Council to Members of Staff, Agenda page 9, Directorate Executive Strategies. The purpose of this report is to present the updated S6 Instrument of Delegation, Council to Members of Council staff to Council for consideration. Excuse me. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
The Council, in the exercise of the powers conferred by the legislation referred to in attachment S6, Instrument of Delegation, 1. Delegates to members of Council staff holding, acting in or performing the duties of the officers or positions referred to in that instrument the powers, duties and functions set out in the instrument subject to the conditions and limitations specified in that instrument. 2. Authorises the Chief Executive Officer to execute the S6 Instrument of Delegation. And 3, approves the S6 Instrument of Delegation to come into force immediately upon execution, or approves that on the coming into force of the S6 Instrument of Delegation, the previous S6 Instrument of Delegation from Council to members of Council staff is revoked.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris, thank you. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Arnott. This is largely procedural, especially coming in under a newer Chief Executive Officer, Andrew Mason. One of the big changes that has happened here, though, is there's a change in the delegation to determine planning applications. So we're moving from the threshold of, well, effectively 5 objectors, increasing it to 7. So apart from that, everything else is pretty well the same, and it's just making sure the Council runs as an efficient organisation, delegating the powers of Council through the CEO through to the staff so that they can continue to work and run our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak to the motion? Thank you. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to the motion? There being no further speakers, Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor Arnott.
I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. I will now move on to item 7.3, S11A, Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation under the Planning Environmental Act 1987. Agenda page number 12, Directed Executive Strategies. This report is to seek Council's endorsement of the S11A, Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation under the Planning and Environment Act 1987 to members of staff which reflect recent legislative changes within the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, what is your motion?
That Council, in the exercise of the powers conferred by S224 of the Local Government Act 1989, the Act, and the other legislation referred to in the attached Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation, the instrument, 1. Authorises the members of Council staff referred to in the instrument in attachment 1 to be appointed and authorised as set out in the instrument. 2. Adopts the Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation as found at attachment 1. And 3. Authorises the instrument to come into force immediately upon the common seal of Council being fixed the instrument by the Chief Executive Officer and remains in force until Council determines to vary or revoke it.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Taylor, thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you. I will just say that a council resolution is required to update the authorised officers under the Planning and Environment Act 1987, and this needs to be updated as staffing changes have occurred, so it must be reflected in the update so staff have the authorisation to carry out their role in regulation of the Act.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you. There being any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? There being no further speakers, Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak before closing the debate? I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.4, appointment of Independent Audit and Risk Committee member, agenda page number 14, Directorate Corporate Strategies. The purpose of this report is to recommend the appointment of a new independent member to Council's Audit and Risk Committee to fill an existing vacancy. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
I'd like to move that Kevin Ledden be appointed as an independent member of Council's Audit and Risk Committee for a 4-year term starting the 6th of March 2023 with full voting rights for the upcoming committee meeting on the 7th of March 2023.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, thank you. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Arnott. I'd first just like to thank Donna for her time on the Audit and Risk Committee, to come to a few meetings and ended up becoming the chairperson before having to resign and subsequently taking a role with Warrnambool City Council. But I'd really like to thank her for her time. And I think it's going to be a really exciting opportunity having Kevin with us in the Audit and Risk Committee. He comes with a wealth of experience, not only working in Warrnambool City Council, but a range of councils around the region. And I'm sure his expertise and knowledge will be valued over the next 4 years as he's just starting his term. And I look forward to seeing Kevin tomorrow at our first meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd too just like to add that I think Kevin's well placed to enter into the independent role given his skill set and experience, especially within the local government sector. But I'd also like to thank Donna for her membership and contribution, and I wish her well within her role at Council.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Is there any other councillor who wishes to speak to the motion? No. Look, I would just like to reiterate my fellow councillors' thoughts there. It's been a little bit of a tumultuous time with people coming and going on our Audit and Risk Committee, so we look forward to welcoming Kevin Ledden and hope it's a long and worthwhile process. So thank you. There being no further speakers, Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor.
No worries. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We will now move on to item 7.5, Activities and Initiatives 2022 to 2023, October through to December, Quarter 2, agenda page number 16, Directorate Corporate Strategies. This report provides information on the progress in achieving the activities and initiatives, A&Is, set down for 2022-2023 as part of the Council Plan and Budget process. This report provides Council and the community with an update in the progress of actions across Council's functional areas. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Taylor, what is your motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I would like to move that the motion of the Activities and Initiatives 2022 October to December quarter be received as per the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, thank you. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. Yes, there were many highlights of this quarter, including a record sold-out performances for a 3-month period in the history of the venue of the Light Show, including 2 sold-out performances by Guy Sebastian and Goanna. Strong return of a sports activity at Council's indoor sport facilities, including Aquazone, after pandemic restrictions for the previous 2 years. East of Aberline Road, Structure Plan Precinct is progressing well under the lead of the Victorian Planning Authority. And finally, the official opening of the new State of Art Library on Thursday, the 13th of October, which will prove to be a great asset for Warrnambool's future. Thank you, Miranda.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Just in terms of my observations through the ANIs here, I'm quite disappointed that given that this council has clearly expressed one of council's priority projects being what happens to Aquazone, that an aquatic strategy is still yet to be started, and I know that it's on the cards, but it's just clearly been taking a long time, so I am disappointed in that aspect. I agree with Councillor Taylor that I think it was a tremendous feat for the Lighthouse Theatre to have had the most sold-out shows in a 3-month period, which set a new record for the facility. And item 1.5.4 shows strong growth in membership too, so I think a big well done to staff all round on their efforts there. There is a mention about the Community Development Fund, which opened up in February for grants of up to $5,000, so I would encourage people in the community to get your applications in as this closes on March the 26th. There has been funding received for Kepler and Lava Street roundabout, due to start in the 23-24 financial year. As the majority of this council did vote to keep pedestrian crossings at CBD roundabouts, this new one I imagine will be refurbished to reflect the same design, and I do have concerns about how this will further impact the CBD traffic. Finally, I am very pleased with Council's advocacy efforts in partnership with the Marara River School to ensure the lowering of the speed limit to 40 kilometres per hour near the school during drop-off and pick-up times. Amazing the simple but important things you have to fight for these days, but I'm very pleased that something has finally been done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Is there any other councillor who wishes to speak to the motion? No. I would just like to make mention of the Economic Development Investment Team. They've managed to secure a $250,000 grant through Launch Victoria, and in partnering with Deakin Uni, Moyne and Corangamite Shires, they will be looking at start-up entrepreneurs who wish to establish their business. And one of the things that has been looked at with the Deakin University Student Freelancing Hub is to conduct a seafood market feasibility study to determine the feasibility of establishing a seafood market in Warrnambool, and the final report is currently under review by the unit. Our economic development team do a really good job, as their purpose is to keep promoting and looking at new things and new ways to help Warrnambool and our Warrnambool economy. There being no further speakers, Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No, thank you, Miranda.
Thank you. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Look at item 7.6 now, the Coastal Connect ICT Procurement Policy, agenda page number 18, Directed Corporate Strategies. The purpose of this report is for the adoption of the joint venture ICT procurement policy. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Taylor, what is your motion?
Thank you, Miranda. I'd like to move that the Warrnambool City Council, as a member of the South West Council's ICT Alliance joint venture, consider and approve the joint venture ICT procurement policy as presented as attachment 1, as per Council Officer's recommendation, be accepted. Thank you, Miranda.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Ziegler, thank you. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. Yes. I'd like to see that the Warrnambool City Council, as a member of the South West Council's ICT Alliance joint venture, consider and approve the joint venture ICT procurement policy with Corangamite and Moyne Shires of procuring and implementing shared services previously known as SWCI CTA, now renamed as Coastal Connect. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion? Thank you. Are there any councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Being no further speakers, Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor Arnott.
I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We will now move on to item 7.7, the Whites Road Gum Trees, agenda page number 21, Directorate City Infrastructure. This report provides information on the proposed removal of a row of 22 gum trees adjacent to 150 Whites Road. Excuse me. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillor Ziegler, what is your question?
Yeah, Mayor Arnott, I'm a little confused. The arborist's report suggests that there are two options for the future of these trees in terms of their removal. One is a complete removal all at once, and the other is a staged removal. This recommendation doesn't give us any option or explanation as to what's going to happen with that.
Okay.
Through you, Mayor, so to answer Councillor Ziegler's request, so the option is that officers are recommending is option 1, which is removal of all of the trees. Removal of every second tree doesn't resolve the issue where the trees are effectively growing up against the fence. So the recommendation would be that all of the trees be removed.
Thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris, you have a question?
Yeah, just to clarify that, so correct me if I'm wrong, option A is to remove all of them, option B is still to remove all of them over a lengthy period. Am I correct in saying that?
At the start of my third week, that's out of my so I'll have to refer to Director
City Infrastructure.
Yeah, that's correct. What Councillor Paspaliaris just mentioned there, that option B is to remove them all eventually, but over a fairly extended period.
Okay.
So can I just clarify then, in the recommendation is to remove all the trees, not option B, like...
That's correct, Madam Mayor. The preferred option from the officers is option 1, which is to remove them all in the one hit, as opposed to a staged removal over a period of time.
Okay, thank you. Is everyone quite okay with now where we are with the option? Thank you. Excuse me. I'm sorry. And it's a prank call. My apologies, everyone. So, councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
I'd like to propose an alternative motion, if that's the case, Mayor Arnott, that the council approve the removal of these gum trees in line with the option 2 or option B in the recommendations of the arboricultural report.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, thank you. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I do. My approach to this particular issue is that I think that in general, unless they're causing great immediate safety concerns, trees should be preserved in most cases. In this situation, I see that that's not entirely possible. I also see that we have certain conditions which pertain to the fauna. We've got koalas, we've got birds and all the rest of it, and I think that a staged removal will help to address the rehousing and revegetating with more suitable forestation in the area to so that we make it a little bit easier on the fauna.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I will just add, thank you, Mayor. The recommendation in the report is obviously that it's highly probable to inevitable that the trees will contribute to property damage in the future. So in my mind, the trees would need to go. But I think a staged approach for me would be one that I feel more comfortable with due to them being currently a form of habitat for koalas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Blaine.
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. This is interesting, the alternative motion that Councillor Ziegler's raised and that Councillor Paspaliaris is second. I would like to foreshadow that if this motion does fail, that we will go back to the original motion, the original officer's recommendation. But one thing sort of comes to mind here. It's not like it's a secret, and everyone's actually agreed that these trees are going to have issues in underground infrastructure and the infrastructure around that area. At the end of the day, the habitat is going to go one way or another, whether it's now or whether it's in a few years. Is it going to be any less detrimental to the koalas that are living there? No. They're still not going to be able to live there, whether it's now or whether it's in a couple of years. Is there possibilities that we will see underground infrastructure, as these trees mature, continue to be damaged? Is there the possibility that the houses and trees and sheds that surround these trees could be damaged in a big storm? Yes. Is a couple of years worth it to put the residents who live along that road at risk? I don't think it is. Is it possible to rehome the koalas? Is it possible to give them somewhere else to live? Yes. Yes, it is. Is it possible to move those houses? No. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Is there any other councillor who wishes to speak to the motion? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I'd just like to endorse Councillor Blaine's comments about the gum trees, mainly because initially they've been planted far too close to the fence line, which was quite absurd by somebody back then who did not know how big and how quickly these blue gum trees grow. They grow enormously quickly to a giant tree over a short period of time. So, yes, I'd just like to endorse Councillor Blaine's comments that they should go at the nearest opportunity. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Acoyce, did you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Arnott. Mayor, I'm familiar to that area, the White Roads, and I can see clearly the danger that may be caused by these trees at the property of 150 White Roads. And we see the technical advices from ARPOSET in this report that species is generally too large for planting in urban environment. They has a strong and vigorous root system which can cause damage to building and underground services, as my colleague just alluded to. Therefore, I would go with option B for gradually removal of this tree located directly adjacent to property number 150 White Road. we do care for animals, of course, but before we do so, we have to take care of ourselves and take care then for the animals. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Akush. There is no doubt that these row of trees have been planted far too closely to a fence, and the root system is obviously going to interfere with buildings in the future. There is the possibility, if there is a koala population there, that they can be rehomed. And I don't think by removing every second tree, as was outlined initially, will actually help a koala population, because they don't always live in the one tree anyway. Whether they're removed now or in a slower time frame, I feel is not going to make a lot of difference to the issues of the koalas and the habitat. But the longer this takes, the more likelihood there is going to be damage to infrastructure that council will be ultimately responsible for. There being no further speakers, Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
I do, Mayor Arnott. No one disputes the fact of these trees being in the wrong place. They're the wrong species for that particular area, and there's no doubt that ultimately, would they be left, they would cause difficulties with infrastructure. A fairly silly planting in the first place. I don't think it's all about koalas at all. I think that certainly the koalas can be rehomed, but there's certainly issues of harm to the other fauna that use these trees. And we don't have a record that is good enough in terms of replacing the trees that we cut out quickly enough. Mm-hmm. I think that while it's a Band-Aid option, the suggestion that we could do it in a staged fashion, I think is just a better alternative than ripping them all out at once and creating havoc amongst the fauna on that particular stretch of creek.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? Thank you. Councillors Ziegler, Akush and Paspaliaris are in favour. All those against? Thank you. As the Mayor, I now have, I can use my casting vote. I don't think the status quo is very clear here, so I will use my casting vote to defeat this motion. Thank you. Councillor Blaine, did you wish to foreshadow?
Yeah, I have foreshadowed a motion, so I'd just like to move that it is I'd just like to move the motion that it's recommended that council approve the removal of these gum trees in line with the recommendation of the Arboricultural Report, refer attachment 1, so the original motion.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Blaine.
That doesn't specify which option on the recommendations.
Point of order, we might just have to add option A to what you said.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Councillor Blaine, would you like to?
Yeah, we'll add option A. So it's recommended the council approve the removal of these trees in line with the recommendation of option A in the Arboricultural's report, refer attachment 1.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak any further?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Is there any other councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Taylor, you can speak if you wish to.
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I've had first-hand knowledge of these trees growing in my garden many years ago, and not knowing how quickly that this particular gum tree grew, I planted one in my front lawn, and I was shocked over the next few years to see how quickly it grew. So from that point of view, endorse Councillor Blaine's comments. Thank you, Mariana.
Thank you. Do any other councillors wish to speak to this motion? Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillors Blaine, Taylor and Arnott in favour. All those against? Councillors Ziegler, Akoish and Paspaliaris. I will now use my capacity as Mayor as a casting vote, and I am in favour of this motion. Thank you. The motion is carried. We will now move to item 7.8, PP 2022 0047 5 Manuka Drive, Warrnambool. Agenda page number 23, directed City Growth. This report summarises the planning assessment and provides a recommendation for the application to subdivide the land known as 5 Manuka Drive, Warrnambool, into 2 lots, and recommends that Council issue a notice of decision to grant a permit subject to conditions. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
I have an alternative motion. Mayor Arnott, that Council, having caused notice of planning application number PP 2022-0047 to be given under section 52 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, and or the planning scheme having considered all the matters required under section 60 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, decides to determine to refuse the application for PP 2022-0047 under the provisions of the Warrnambool Planning Scheme in respect of the land known and described as A Lot 3 LP 98429 TSH WARR 5 Manuka Drive, Warrnambool, for the two-lot subdivision in accordance with the endorsed plans for the following reasons: that the proposal is inconsistent with the established character of the existing neighbourhood, which promotes large street frontages and centrally sited built form, and 2, that the proposed subdivision fails to meet the preferred outcome of minimum lot sizes of 2,000 square metres and minimum frontage of 22 metres, as per Schedule 1 of Clause 43.02.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Akoish, thank you. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I do. I agree with the premises put forward in the motion that the proposal is inconsistent with the established character of that area, and that the proposed subdivision fails to meet the preferred outcome of minimum lot sizes of 2,000 square metres. I understand that the proponents of this particular planning application are hanging on the semantics which is written in the plan, wherein it's been stated that the development should remain the same, not must remain the same. To my way of thinking, I think that development should remain the same, and that to do this allows a precedent which will change the nature of that particular neighbourhood.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Akoish, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, please, Mayor. As my colleague, Councillor Ziegler, stated, the proposed subdivision does not comply with the minimum requirement specified with the design and development overlay and characteristic of the of the area and sense of peace, of place. With this subdivision is setting a precedent that will change the character of the area and will be affected by density of traffic, vegetation loss, infrastructure, and loss of large lots with the state. For these above reasons, I think this should not be supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Koch. Are there any councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Blaine.
Sorry, it's a foreshadowy kind nod. I will foreshadow if this fails, we move back to the original recommendation. It's interesting, I suppose, especially with this subdivision here and reading all the objectors' concerns, does it set a precedent? No. Every block here will have to go through the same planning process. And I know that we've just upped the amount of objectors that we need to have, but it will go through exactly the same process. So if there are enough objectors, you know, it will come to council again. So I wouldn't say that this actually creates a precedent. Are there blocks around this estate that are under 2,000 square metres? Yes. Yes, there is. I would like to say that, well, you know, the individual who wants to subdivide their block, this is, of all the subdivisions of all the blocks, I actually think this is probably one of the better ones that we've seen. It's a large area, like both of them, both blocks are over 1,500 squares, I believe. Looking at the actual neighbourhood, I don't see it having a totally detrimental effect, mainly because one house is behind another one. The other thing is because there is large blocks, like the parking issue that we always hear about, not having enough room for cars, seems to be more manageable with more land around these houses. I suppose the question would be, if this council doesn't want to approve this subdivision with such large blocks, are we really open for business? Do we really want to encourage more housing and more and provide for more individuals in our city, or do we want to continue to struggle with our housing issues? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Paspaliaris.
The open for business component that Councillor Blaine mentioned, I'm not sure I'm completely on board with that sentiment, but I do think that the subdivision proposed, and I understand and I acknowledge the existing amenity and neighbourhood character that objectors have passionately noted in their correspondence, but for me the fact remains that the existing amenity and neighbourhood character does have 11 lots in the design development overlay of this area that have less than 2,000 square metres. So this proposal, the original proposal, is not too dissimilar to other sites nearby. I do feel that the proposal, as it is divided, the land is divided within this established area, even after being divided, it creates what are considered large lots. The subdivision, in my view, still maintains a low density, and two large allotments of almost 2,000 square metres placed one behind the other, for the most part, should respect the character of this area of Warrnambool, because I think it will limit change to how this site presents within the existing streetscape by aiming to maintain a large frontage. I think had the proposal been a side-by-side subdivision, it may have been a different story for me. I appreciate that for some of the residents, my view may not seem fair, but I think on balance, my assessment would be reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Is there any other councillors who wish to speak to this? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I'm well aware of the 7 objections received voicing their disapproval of this subdivision into 2 large allotments. which I believe will not be detrimental to the estate. The allotments will be placed one behind the other, so in effect, only Lot 1 will be visible from Manuka Drive. In addition to one new dwelling on allotment 1, it is not inconsistent with the neighbourhood character inasmuch as Manuka Estate properties will not be devalued. There will be negative impact on wildlife and very little increased traffic movement. The concept of this subdivision setting a precedent is not a valid reason to refuse this application in planning terms, as each proposal must be considered on its own merits. Thank you, Mayor Anna.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Yes, this is quite an emotive argument, and I understand that that whole amenity out there, the housing, is on quite substantial sized blocks. However, as Councillor Paspaliaris has pointed out, there are 11 lots that are a lot smaller than what is being proposed at the moment. The fact that this block, the 2 blocks that will become of this 1 block at the moment, are just under the 2,000 square metres, so they are still substantially sized blocks. I don't think it's going to affect the amenity, being that one house is behind the other, and with further gardening and tree planting, it will hardly be visible from the road. I don't think the reference to increased traffic being one household in an area that size is actually a valid argument. And I don't think, as our fellow councillors have pointed out, that by doing this we're setting a precedent, because each planning application will be judged on their merits. Being no further speakers, Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
Yes, Mayor Arnott. I'd like to point out that the concept of amenity and the nature of a neighbourhood is no more relevant than to the denizens of that neighbourhood. The people that live here are the ones who understand and live in and have the concept of the amenity and the nature of their neighbourhood. They're the ones for whom this proposition is an imposition. And that's the reason why I saw fit to put an alternative motion up to have this thrashed out.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Ziegler and Councillor Akosh. All those against? Councillor Blaine, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Paspaliaris and Councillor Arnott. The motion is defeated. I will now put the... Councillor Blaine has foreshadowed. Councillor Blaine, what is your motion? Yeah,
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I would like to move that we accept the officer's recommendation to grant the application for PP 20024407.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, thank you. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak? Thank you. I will now put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillors Blaine, Taylor, Paspaliaris and Arnott in favour. Those against? Councillor Ziegler and Councillor Koish. Thank you. The motion is carried. We will now move on to item 7.9, DP 2022-0002- application to approve a development plan for the Heights, Russell Street, Dennington. Agenda page number 30, Directorate City Growth. This report considers the Heights residential development, describing future residential development in relation to Russell Street in Dennington, and recommends that Council approve the plan. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Taylor, what is your motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I'd like to move a motion to approve the development of the Heights Dennington residential development as per the officer's recommendation be accepted. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Ziegler? Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. This is a designated residential growth area consistent with the relevant provisions of the Warrnambool Planning Scheme, whereby previous issues have already been addressed. The development meets needs of all the current and future residents with affordable residential land, and thus providing a major benefit to the Dennington community. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mayor Arnott, I think that this is a very exciting development, and it also will help to ameliorate the problems we have with providing opportunities for more housing in the town in a much more palatable way than the previous motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Are there any councillors who wish to speak to the motion? There being no further speakers, Councillor Taylor, do you wish to close?
No, thank you, Mayor Arnott.
No worries. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Move on to item 7.10, DP 2022-0003, application to approve an amended development plan for Emmanuel College, 140 to 150 Botanic Road and 13 Crawley Street. Agenda page number 33, Directorate City Growth. This report considers an amended development plan for Emmanuel College, describing the implementation of a master plan for an existing education facility in relation to 140, 150 Botanic Road and 13 Crawley Street, and recommends that Council approve the plan. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, what is your motion?
That having considered all the matters normally required under Section 60 of the Act for Planning Applications, Council approved the development plan under the relevant provisions of the Warrnambool Planning Scheme in respect of the land described as Lot 1 on PS 327562 and Lot 2, PS 619541, known as 140 to 150 Botanic Road, Warrnambool, Victoria 3280, and Lot 2, PS 724625, known as 13 Crawley Street, Warrnambool, Victoria 3280, which seeks to facilitate the implementation of a master plan for an existing education facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Ziegler. Thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mayor, only to say that I think that obviously where this was placed on exhibition for 2 weeks, there were no objections received. So generally I think that's a good sign, and I think anything that involves planning and investment for future growth of educational facilities can only be a good thing for the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. Only to endorse the comments that Councillor Paspaliaris has made. I think that this is it's terrific development, and as she so rightly pointed out, it augurs well for the future for education in that particular sector.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to the motion? There being no... Oh, sorry. I got a bit carried away then, Councillor Taylor, sorry. Councillor Taylor, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I'd just like to endorse my fellow councillors' comments about this development master plan, which is vital to facilitate provision for the future direction of the education facility to meet amended demands and on approximately a hectare of land within the general residential zone, which allows for education use in this particular zone. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Are there any further speakers? No. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak before closing the debate? Thank you. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move to item 7.11, street naming proposal, agenda page number 36, Directorate City Growth. Council has received a request to consider a road naming proposal. This report is to advise that the consultation process required under the naming rules for places in Victoria, statutory requirements for naming roads, features and localities, 2022 naming rules has been completed. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
That the council support the proposed road names Dispensary Lane and De Grande Lane.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Taylor. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you. Yes, Mayor Arnott. I was very pleased when I saw that these names were suggested because both of them speak very much to the heritage, particularly the Dispensary Lane, and more recent heritage from the De Grande family, which also indicates a nod to the historical value that both of these elements have had in our town. I'm very happy to recommend that.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. Just like to endorse Councillor Ziegler's comments, and I believe the naming of these laneways will prove to be very beneficial to avoid confusion with emergency vehicles, delivering of goods and the location of street addressing. The proposed names have a distinct historical link to the sites inasmuch as Dispensary Lane is connected with Richard Kennedy, who established a large pharmacy at 188 Timor Street and was very active in the Warrnambool community affairs, being a councillor from 1885 to 1990. President of the Warrnambool Hospital and Benevolent Asylum, President of the Mechanics Institute and Art Gallery, a trustee of the Savings Bank and for many years a Justice of Peace. De Grande's sporting goods store, founded in 1897, were very well known for their store, which operated for 114 years and closed in 2011. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Are there any councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Paspaliaris.
I'd just like to add in support of the other councillors that I think that two excellent names have been suggested and the acknowledgement to the history of the area is very relevant and appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No.
Okay. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. We now move on to item 7.12, Warrnambool Changchun Sister City Framework Agreement and Plan, the agenda page number 39. Excuse me. This report provides information and requests endorsement of the Warrnambool-Changchun Sister City Framework Agreement and the 2023-2025 Warrnambool-Changchun Exchange and Cooperation Plan. The documents are proposed to be signed by the Chief Executive Officers at the 10th anniversary Warrnambool-Changchun online ceremony in late March, which is to be confirmed. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
I'd like to move the council note and approve the signing of the Warrnambool-Changchun Framework Agreement and 3-year plan 2023 to 2025 by the Chief Executive Officer at the 10th of Warrnambool-Changchun Anniversary online ceremony.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Ziegler? Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Look, it's exciting to see that we're 10 years as sister cities with Changchun. It's been something Warrnambool's been a part of with other cities. I'm trying to think of the other. Mayura.
Yeah.
That's the one. Sorry, like with Mayura. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, and it's exciting to see that we've finally hit 10 years together, and I do hope that as we continue to move forward with Changchun, that we continue to prosper and grow together moving forward. And I look forward to the signing ceremony at the virtual 10-year anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I do, Mayor Arnott. The sister city relationships are probably fraught with a little bit of criticism from many in the community, but in my mind, I think that any kind of notional attempt to improve relationships with other countries and with other cultures is a good thing, and we really can only benefit from those kind of situations.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Do any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Paspaliaris?
Thank you, Mayor. From what we've been told, it seems as though this continued relationship will help to further establish, I guess, some better relationships between some of our businesses locally who might be willing to explore potential for export, and I think that can only be a good thing in terms of encouraging expansion like that. So I think it's good to have this in place and continue it, and the 10 years has come up quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the motion? I would just like to reiterate what my fellow councillors have said. I think it's important that we do foster good overseas relationships. There are businesses in Warrnambool that may wish to explore the export component of their business, and these sort of relationships can only help further that. So I'm more than happy to support this motion. Being no further speakers, Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak before closing the debate? Oh, sorry, I got the wrong one. Councillor Blaine, my apologies. Do you wish to speak further before you closing the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor Arnott.
My apologies again, Councillor Blaine. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item 7.13, informal meetings of council reports, agenda page number 42, directed Executive Services. The purpose of this report is to provide council with copies of informal meetings of council, previously known as Assembly of Councillor Records, as previously required under section 80A2 of the Local Government Act 1989. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
I move that the record of the informal meetings of council held on the 13th, 20th and 27th of February 2023 be received.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak to the motion? Are there any councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Being no further speakers, Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No, thank you.
I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move to item 7.14, the Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council Activities Summary Report, agenda page number 43, Directorate Executive Services. This report summarises Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council activities since the last ordinary meeting, which particularly relate to key social, economic, environmental issues of direct relevance to the Warrnambool community. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, what is your motion?
That the Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council Activities Summary Report be received.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion? Are there any councillors who wish to speak to the motion? There being no further speakers, Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak before closing the debate? Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 8, notice of motion. We've received no notices of motion.
No, Mayor, no notice of motion.
Thank you. We'll go to item 9, general business. Only items, general business is for items that are of a minor or routine nature, and I retain the right to reject items in accordance with clause 29.2 of the governance rules. I remind councillors that you will have a maximum of 2 minutes to speak, and officers will be provided with an opportunity to respond or address any issues raised. Councillors, are there any items of general business? No, thank you. Go on to item 10, urgent business. Chief Executive Officer, have you received notice of any items of urgent business?
Through Mayor, no items have been received.
Thank you. There being no further items of business, I declare the meeting closed at 6:56 p.m. Thank you, everyone.